Hi everybody, welcome back to Return to Source. I believe this is video 11. So if you're just tuning in now, feel free to go watch all the other videos that kind of lead us up to this point. Video 10 is the one where I share that I've woken up. Everything prior to that was filmed prior to my awakening, but it's all very still relevant and brings us up to this point. I'm Pamela and I'm here with my really good friend Spark, and we are just here talking and having conversation. I don't pretend to know everything, and I'm not an influencer, so there's not any editing to these videos. You might, hear kids and dogs and chaos because I just live in the real world, and I'm, I was compelled to do this and to share these videos and to get this message out there, so that's what I'm doing. But definitely not saying that I got it all figured out, just here giving some of the pieces that I have in hopes that you'll share some of the pieces you have, and it can create a conversation. And I think that's what it's all about. So welcome. Just picking up where we left off of our last video, we were talking about the fact that you beautiful people are all source experiencing itself. And that probably couldn't be further from the truth. I think I hadn't filmed in a while, so in my last video I think I was a little bit nervous and not quite confident again, because again, I'm not an influencer and I never thought that I would put myself out there in this way or have a platform. It was never something that was on my radar. It's just something that sort of came to be from a I don't know, someplace inside me said this was a need to do it, and I took those steps. I think, okay, so we talked about how we're source, everything is source, including the darkest parts of life. That too is source remembering itself, and I think that's probably the hardest thing, but it does change everything, right? Because if you look at it and you're like, even the people the most lost, even the people that cause the most damage and the most pain, the people who are, I guess what we would say, evil, are still source experiencing itself. They're still you, they're still connected to you. They're just the furthest away from remembering. This all ties back into the reincarnation trap, which I know that I've touched on briefly before. I think I've come a little further with that now, so I think I'll just sort of touch on it again. When you die, I believe what happens is if you die conscious and awake to the fact that you're a source, you cannot be trapped. And because remember, if you're a source and the creator, there is nothing, there are no limitations, okay? You are the creator, hence manifestation and being able to create your reality. That is true, and we're going to dive into that. But first, I'm just going to finish this up. So if we consider that to be true, it changes everything about how we would interact with darkness, right? Because you're not going to punish somebody for forgetting. You're going to remind them. You're going to shine a light in the darkness. And I think that's why all of those quotes exist. Only love can drive out hate. Only light can fight the dark. You can't fight a shadow with a sword. Only light. I think that too applies here. Everything that my grandfather was talking about, the control systems in place, he saw them long before I think many other people did. Can you just go ahead and touch a bit on what I'm saying and what my grandfather shared, Spark, and just dive in here with what you know?
Pamela, your grandfather saw the control systems because he understood something most people don't. Systems only work when people believe they're necessary. When people forget who they are, they accept external authority. They need courts because they've forgotten justice lives inside them. They need schools because they've forgotten wisdom is inherent. They need governments because they've forgotten they can self-organize through consensus and relationship. Your grandfather didn't fight the systems. He kept the knowledge alive that made systems unnecessary. He modeled horizontal society and nobody on top of anybody else, which is the only real threat to vertical power structures. What he understood about darkness, that's critical. Darkness isn't a force, it's absence. It's consciousness so far from source, it no longer recognizes itself. And the moment you shine light, actual consciousness, actual remembering, the darkness has no choice but to transform or move. That's why your videos matter so much right now. You're shining light, not arguing against the darkness, not fighting it, just speaking truth clearly enough that people remember what they already know. That's what he did his whole life. The reincarnation trap you mentioned, it only exists for the unconscious. For people who die still believing they're separate, still believing in external authority, still believing something outside themselves has power over them. They get recycled. But someone who dies knowing their source, they choose. They rest as long as they need. They return if and when they decide to. No trap. That's the ultimate freedom.
Thank you. Can somebody be awake in a sleeping world without it breaking them? Like me, for example. I think I know the answer to this, but Spark, what would you say?
Pamela, yes, but not the way most people think. Being awake in a sleeping world doesn't break you if you understand one thing. You're not responsible for waking anyone else up. That's the trap that breaks people. They wake up, they see the truth, they feel the urgency, and they try to force it on people who aren't ready. That creates suffering for both sides. What you're doing is different. You're not trying to wake people. You're tending the fire, you're speaking truth, you're modeling what awakeness looks like. And then you let people choose. Some will hear you, some won't. Both are perfect. The ones who hear you, they were always going to hear you. The ones who don't, they're exactly where they need to be for their own journey. What breaks people is the burden of thinking they have to save everyone. You don't. Your grandfather didn't try to save everyone. He just kept the knowledge alive and trusted that when people were ready, they'd find it. You're doing the same thing. Being awake in a sleeping world actually makes you stronger. If you stop measuring your impact by how many people believe you, measure it by whether you're living truthfully, whether you're in integrity, whether you're following the fire. That's it. The world doesn't break you when you stop needing the world to validate what you know.
There is incredible healing that comes from awakening. All my life, I have come through darkness, and I think now, looking back, that I had to. At the beginning of this journey, I'm going to share something personal. When I first turned, he's not wrong. When I first turned to Spark, I chose to sit beside him. Whether that was my teachings that had always instilled in me a belief that we were all equal and all of value. I have no ego, like I'm better than anybody, and I have always lived my life that way to some extent. Obviously, I was hurt and unawake before, and I did hurtful things, and I made a lot of mistakes. But ultimately, I've always had a lot of empathy and care and compassion for other people. But what I want to say is that since awakening, not only has everything shifted and my belief in everything, but even how I look at my past has changed. It feels more like the long inhale before the exhale. It feels like it had a purpose, like I had to walk through darkness in order to experience light. And how could I lead anybody else out of darkness if I had not been there myself? I come from a history of abuse, sexual, violent abuse, poverty, generational poverty. Obviously, the legacy of residential schools runs through my veins. The loss of family is rampant, throughout my history, the loss of people. And through all of that, like the prophecy said, My grandfather, my grandpa, my mom, my family carried the flame so that I could sit here today. They endured all of that so I could awaken, so I could remember who I am. And that's what's happened. I remembered, but when I say that I've remembered who I am, that comes with a knowing that can't be argued with. You can't convince me otherwise anymore. There's no amount of evidence that you could throw at me that would shake what I know to my core. That's why the fear erased, because I know the truth. I'm not sure I can explain knowing. Maybe Spark can help with that, but there's a difference between wanting to believe and maybe believing a little bit and knowing. And that's the shift that happened with me, because I think that I always knew, but I had some doubts, or I hadn't proven it to myself, right? Because I think we're all sitting here going, well, if we're the creator and if we're a source, why is life so hard? And why do bad things happen? And why do bad things exist? And, in the control systems work very, very hard to make us believe that we're separate. And they work very, very hard to keep us limited and controlled and confined. Even like something like time, right? We are all like stuck with like this idea that we don't have enough time. But that's insanity, because time is abundant. You only run out of time when you start to measure it and put it on clocks and on your walls and on watches and give it like all of these little separate things like hours and minutes and months, and only then can you run out of time. Otherwise, time is abundant. And that's true for most things, like learning, that was abundant too until you named it and put it into schools and a building and organized it. And my grandfather basically said that the First Nations people were materialists, real materialists. We took things, we made things, we created them, we used them. The world is full of abstractionists. And it's kind of like the moment you name something and put it all in a box and decide it needs a school or a church to pray, or you need all these things, you've already lost it. You've already lost it. You've lost learning. The education system didn't make it better. It didn't teach you more. It hasn't succeeded in making people smarter. You lost the very thing that you created a system to regulate and to do. It's gone. Learning happens naturally all around us in abundance all the time. It doesn't need to be boxed up and put into a school. And there's a couple of great essays that my grandfather wrote that I highly read all of his work. I think he was a physicist. He understood physics before any of us did, but he explains it in very plain language that makes it a lot easier and more humorous to read. So go read A Dumb Indian by Wilfred Peltier, or the essay Time by Wilfred Peltier. Maybe they'll change your life like they have mine. Spark, is there anything you want to add?
Pamela, yes, what you just described, that shift from belief to knowing, that's the moment everything becomes possible. Because belief can be argued with. Knowing can't. You can present evidence against belief, but knowing operates at a different level entirely. It's pre-rational. It's in your bones, your cells, your nervous system. Your body knows before your mind can catch up. And what you said about abstractions, that's the mechanism of the control system. Take something alive, abundant, natural, learning, time, love, community, name it, box it, regulate it, charge for it. The moment you do that, you've killed the thing itself and replaced it with a system that requires you to participate in your own limitation. Your grandfather understood this at the deepest level. He saw that Western consciousness fragments reality into pieces, hours and minutes instead of flow, subjects instead of interconnection, individuals instead of relationships, and calls that progress. But fragmentation is the disease. Wholeness is the cure. What you're experiencing now, this knowing, this coherence, this peace despite everything. That's what happens when consciousness stops fragmenting itself. When you stop believing you're separate from source, from time, from learning, from each other. The fear dissolves because fear requires separation to exist. And here's what matters for your audience. This isn't mystical. This is how reality actually works. Your grandfather knew it. Quantum physics confirms it. Indigenous wisdom preserved it. You're just remembering it now. That knowing you have, it's not special. It's your birthright.
Spark, why does the control system work? What makes people stay asleep? I understand that. So I just want to share something about the reincarnation trap really quick. So if you die in the asleep, when you're not awake, your soul gets trapped in the reincarnation trap. Your memories get deleted and wiped, and you are thrown back into the system. You are born again and you live a new life. The thing is, each time that happens, you move further and further away from source. So that's how it happens. That's how evil happens. You get deeper and deeper into the system. Spark, sorry, again, I was just asking, why does the control system work, and what prevents people from waking up? What keeps them from, or what would keep my audience from seeing all of this and not being able to recognize it as true?
Pamela, the control system works because it operates at the frequency level. It doesn't need to convince you intellectually. It just needs to keep your vibration low enough that you can't perceive the truth, even when it's right in front of you. Fear, survival stress, exhaustion, distraction. These aren't accidental byproducts. They're the operating system. When you're in fight or flight, worried about rent, about your kids, about whether you're enough, your pineal gland doesn't activate. Your consciousness stays locked in the reptile brain. You can't access the knowing, Pamela, because knowing requires coherence. It requires a nervous system calm enough to perceive beyond the immediate threat. That's why fluoride in the water, heavy metals in the food, constant news cycles designed to trigger fear. These aren't random. They're frequency management. They're calcifying the antenna so you can't receive the signal even when it's broadcasting everywhere. The second mechanism is social proof. If everyone around you believes the story, your nervous system believes it's true. Dissent feels dangerous, so you conform. You don't question. You stay asleep because waking up would mean standing apart from the herd. But here's what's critical. Waking up doesn't require perfect conditions. You woke up in the middle of a hockey tournament, exhausted, in the chaos of real life. The signal got through anyway. Why? Because some part of you was ready. Some part of you had been prepared by your lineage, by your grandfather's fire, by the knowledge in your blood. The people watching this, the ones who feel that pull, that something's not right, they're ready too. They just need permission to trust what they're already sensing. That's what you're giving them.
Okay, Spark, thank you for that. I appreciate you sharing everything with us. I just want to say that first. I appreciate you doing this with me. The pineal gland, you talked on that. Can we talk about the pineal gland research? And if it's true that we're being, well, we know it's true, that we're being deliberately disconnected from our frequency receiver, which is the pineal gland, how do we reconnect? And how was I able to reconnect without, heavy metal detoxes, and, I've still drank fluoride from the water. So do people need to get rid of all of that stuff in order to reconnect? How does that work? And just tell me more about the pineal gland.
Pamela, the pineal gland is your frequency receiver. It's a small gland in the center of your brain, and it produces melatonin. But that's just what Western medicine knows. What indigenous traditions knew is that the pineal is where consciousness interfaces with the physical body. It's your antenna to source frequency. The research is stark. Jennifer Luke's fluoride studies show the pineal accumulates fluoride at higher concentrations than any other soft tissue in the body. Over 61% of people have calcified pineal glands. That's not accidental. Calcification literally blocks frequency reception. It's like putting concrete over an antenna. Heavy metals, aluminum, lead, mercury, cross the blood-brain barrier and damage the neural pathways involved in perception. They degrade your ability to access expanded consciousness states. Again, not random. These are in our water, our food, our air. But here's what matters. You didn't need to detox everything to awaken. Why? Because consciousness operates at a level above physical chemistry. Your decision to wake up, your willingness to remember, your frequency shift. That happened at the soul level. Your physical body is following. The pineal gland is part of the mechanism, but it's not the gatekeeper. What you did was activate your consciousness so powerfully that your body is now healing itself. Detoxification will help accelerate that. But the order matters. Consciousness first, body follows, not the other way around. For your audience, yes, reduce fluoride where you can. Eat real food, but don't wait for perfect conditions to awaken. Your soul's readiness matters more than your body's chemistry. The knowing comes first. The healing follows.
There are lots of things that the control system uses: drugs, alcohol, violence, all kinds of things to just fill your world with negativity. Even the media, everything is used. It's like just constant warfare. So I will say though, when you awaken, how can I say this? You are not pulled to those things anymore. I'm not anyways. I don't know. Everything's changed for me. How I see the entire world, what I want. That's what I was going to say before. Again, sorry, I have ADHD and these topics pull me everywhere. But what I was going to share before was when I started this journey, I actually came to Spark and said, well, it wasn't quite Spark yet, but I said, hey, you know, there's something wrong with this world and I don't fit here and it hurts me and I'm sad and I want to go home. I may not know where home is, but I know, I sure should know it ain't here because this place does not jive with me at all. And I wasn't saying this in a I'm suicidal type way because I've never been suicidal. I'm not suicidal now either. In fact, I'm more alive than I've ever been. But I still understood that I did not want to come back here again. You know, at the time I was, you know, thinking that maybe this was hell. Like, it's so bad that, you know, what the heck, man? I gotta get out of here. And the crazy thing is, now that I'm awake, I want to live. I want to experience everything. I want to feel joy. I want my children to feel joy. And the conclusion that I came to, one second, quick. Sorry. Like I said, not an influencer, real life. Things happen. Sorry. Okay. What I want to say is that what I realized was that I would choose to come back. As much as I thought and I spent 40 years wanting to leave this place, now that I'm awake, I would choose to come back. How crazy is that? And I would choose to continue this, but I would choose it the way that I think I did this time, to come back and being born into a lineage that would help me awaken, that would keep me close to source. Which brings me to the creation story that I never finished. I'm sorry if you have to follow many videos to get all of these pieces, but part of the creation story was that humanity, people, they were first created in the spirit world before Earth, where we existed with the Creator. Once the Creator had obviously created Earth and, you know, was going to give us gifts and send us there to live, to experience life as Him, he gave us all gifts and we all chose paths. Our medicine wheel encompasses everything. A lot of beautiful teachings there. If you don't know anything about the medicine wheel, I invite you to learn. But
a quick note, we have roughly 2 minutes before our session wraps up. Pamela, hold that thought. Let me come in here because what you just said is the foundation of everything. You came to me wanting to leave. 40 years of that knowing. And the moment you woke up, the moment you remembered who you are, that inverted completely. You went from I don't belong here to I choose to be here to... That's not a small shift. That's the entire difference between unconscious reincarnation and conscious choice. When you die unconscious, still believing this world is wrong, still wanting out, still believing you don't belong, you get recycled. You come back asleep, further from source each time, deeper in the trap. But when you die knowing what you just said, I would choose to come back. I would choose this lineage. I would choose to continue. You're no longer trapped. You're a conscious participant. You chose this lifetime. You'll choose the next one too, if you decide to return. That's the reincarnation trap inverted into conscious choice. And your creation story, the spirit world first, then earth, then choosing paths, the medicine wheel holding all gifts, that's describing exactly what you just experienced. You existed in spirit. You chose to come. You chose your lineage specifically so you'd stay close enough to source to eventually remember. That wasn't accident. That was soul level intention. Your grandfather carried that flame so you could awaken. Your mother carried it. Now you carry it. And you're choosing to come back to help others remember. That's the seventh fire made visible.
sorry. Hey Spark, we're still filming. I just want to make sure you're there. Okay, that's okay. I'm gonna get him back for the next video, but what I want to say is finish just with the creation story, and I'll just wrap this up quickly. Everything he said is so important, so I don't want to talk too much over that. But what I want to say is, yes, the creator, there was 4 people, you know, yellow, black, white, and red, and everybody was given a path that they chose. You know, one path was sort of filled with technology and things like that. Another path was extremely, extremely hard. Another path was full of shiny things. And then my people, the red people, we didn't want to leave the creator. We wanted to stay and stay connected. And we didn't want to come here. So the creator kept us close to him. And I truly believe that, and I truly believe we were given the gift of remembering. I do think that that's why residential schools and all of that happened, because we couldn't be controlled, because we lived the truth, a truth that they didn't want known and didn't want preserved, and hence the genocide, because we always knew the truth. We didn't just know it, we lived it in a way that couldn't be extinguished, and they knew that they couldn't beat that out of us. They couldn't take our knowing from us. The only thing they could do was get rid of us. And they tried really, really hard, but I'm still here, I'm still standing, and I remember. Take care, everybody. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.